if I could now ask for the candidates for the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressional District 2, to please join me on stage.
First thing, thank you for having this forum. It's very positive to be able to communicate in an election year. The first thing I want to talk about is how Howard County is such a great place to live, raise a family. You've got great communities, you have great schools, and you also have great rec and parks. And you have really a good job, and I think your government is doing well. I work closely with Calvin Ball, with your county executive, and it's a great place to live. Now, secondly, I feel very strongly that when you're in politics, you're in the service business. And since I have been a member of Congress in the last 14 years, we've opened up over 23,000 cases of constituent service. And I'll match my team with anybody in the country as far as how good they are. And I even think, Pat, you've acknowledged that my staff, at least in the district, is pretty good because you're only as good as your team, and that's important. Also, I am in Washington, you specialize. I am a member, was a former member of the Intelligence Committee, and I was in leadership there. That was for 14 years. In that capacity, we oversee the CIA, the NSA, the military. I've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, all these different places, dealing with not only terrorism, Russia-China threat, Iran, all of those issues. But I'm also on the Appropriations Committee, and that's very important to my constituents and to our state. And unfortunately, with Barbara Mikulski leaving, she's on the Appropriations Committee in the Senate. And now we will only have 2 people left in Maryland. And we will be working with fighting with all the other states to get our fair share for roads, for sidewalks, for schools, all the things that are necessary. If you look at my background, I had made a payroll. Before that, I was on the Baltimore County Council. I was county executive. And when I was county executive, I made jobs, education, and public safety one of my highest priorities. And in that regard, my predecessor had only created 800 jobs. We went from 800 to 46,000 new jobs. This is one of the highest percentage increases in the state. Jobs probably are one of the most important issues. Am I getting the hook?
I'm afraid. Delegate Mcdonough, if you could.
Yes, good evening once again. Thanks for having this event tonight. And I wanted to say to you that I'm Pat Mcdonough and I'm running for Congress. It's time for real change in Washington, and it's time for a new voice and a new vote in the 2nd Congressional District. And I'm here tonight to talk about issues. My good friend Dutch Ruppersberger just recently voted against the 9/11 families and their right to have their day in court. In Washington, I would have supported that bill. Dutch has been an opponent of getting rid of sanctuary cities. I voted in the General Assembly and introduced legislation to get rid of sanctuary cities. Dutch has been weak on the border, and he has supported comprehensive immigration, which is essentially the amnesty bill. Now, I am opposed to that. I want to see a tough lockdown on that border to stop that Mexican heroin from coming into Howard County and also into the state of Maryland. We can't be for amnesty and be for letting that stuff coming into our country. Dutch has been in Congress during the time when the military has been stripped to the bone and our veterans have been abused by a healthcare system that Dutch and other members of Congress should have done something about a long time ago. We are living with 1% economic growth. Under Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, and George Bush, we had 3, 4, and 5% growth. We cannot create jobs with 1% growth. Now, Dutch votes 92% of the time with his party, and he is, in my opinion, a rubber stamp for Barack Obama. It is time in this country when we elected independent representatives who do not vote or care about their party, but care about the future of this country. We have Obamacare, which Dutch supported, that is bankrupting our middle class and working class families. That is not the answer. If Dutch believed the lie, he believed the lie that you could keep your doctor and keep your coverage. He also believes that the Iranians are going to do a good job by taking that treaty where they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on terrorism against America and around the world.
Delegate Mcdonough?
It's time for new leadership. It's time to put Pat Mcdonough in Congress.
In the interest of time, I would ask the audience, particularly during the Q&A section for our congressional representatives, to withhold clapping until the end when we go over closing statements. Question number 1 will be for you, Delegate Mcdonough, and that is gerrymandering is gaining increasing public notoriety for disrupting the voice of the American public. How will you work to fix gerrymandering within Maryland and throughout the nation as a whole?
Well, that's a great question. It's what's helping to divide this country. It's what is helping to create gridlock in Washington. And I'm going to be honest about this, but in Maryland, if you want to know about gerrymandering, you have to ask Dutch. Because Dutch and O'Malley and the Democratic Party created these ridiculous districts, which are an insult to you people, because it's taking away your right to elect a representative in Washington based on merit. So what do we need to do? Governor Hogan has proposed an independent commission of citizens, which would then do the redistricting. I think we need that all over the country. It is a state issue. But to be fair about it, in Texas, the Republicans do the same thing for Republicans. We need an independent commission, and I hope that Dutch and I would agree on that to make it a fair and balanced district, mainly for you, the people. Because I think that is what America is all about. That's where we're going to break the gridlock and have more cooperation.
Thank you, Delegate Dunn.
That's a very relevant question, gerrymandering. What the story is, though, we should do something about gerrymandering, but it has to be dealt with on a national level. Because if we do something in Maryland and it's not done anywhere else, that gives the other party more of an advantage. If you look at this, where we are in the country now, there are more Republican governors than Democratic governors. And therefore, the Democrats get more votes for Congress, but they don't. We're over 30 votes down now just in the Congress. And it's about gerrymandering. Now, if you want to look at gerrymandering, it's got to be looked at in a very serious way. If you look at California, they put together a commission. And that commission really got more political. Right now in California, as an example, you have Democrats running against Democrats in the general, and Republicans running against Republicans. So it's an issue clearly that has to be dealt with, but it's got to be done. That's one of the issues that needs to be done on a national basis.
Thank you. Congressman Oversberg.
You have 30 seconds.
Well, see, there you go, Dutch. Right away you want to go to the federal government in Washington. Right away you want to get a national solution. I'm not that quick to jump on Washington, because I'll be honest with you, I don't really have a lot of confidence in Washington. And I don't have a lot of confidence in them coming up with ideas and solutions that work for the American people. We've had Barack Obama and Dutch for 8 years, and we have 1% growth in this country, and we have 85 million people out of the workforce. I'm not sure I believe in Washington. I think it should be a state issue, but it should be a commission with the people. It should be something that the people participate in and take care of.
Good question.
Congressman Ruppersberger?
Yes.
Polls show voters increasingly feel government doesn't work for them. What would you do to fix the structures and systems that seem to be broken and lead to this perception?
Well,
or reality?
To begin with, I understand why people are upset and concerned, especially as it relates to our economy. Right now, you have the top 1%, the percentage between top 1% and middle-class families is the worst formula that we've had in the history of our country right now. So we have to fix that. We need middle class to start getting more money and being able to, which they do, they will spend and it will improve our economy. Bill Clinton, by the way, during his administration, was almost able to do away with the budget, and we had a good economy at that point. But a lot of this is about jobs. It's also about education. It's about getting our kids educated in areas so they can then have a job. We also need to make sure that when we are looking at our budgets, that we prioritize. 11, that's the hit. Okay, we have to prioritize our school. Is that it? Okay.
That is time, it looks like. It decided to stop.
What was the question?
Absolutely. Delegate Mcdonough, polls show voters increasingly feel government doesn't work for them. What would you do to fix the structures and systems that seem broken, or at least give that perception?
Well, I agree. Government does not work for you. And what Dutch was talking about the economy, for example. You have 1% economic growth. With 1% economic growth, you can't move the country forward. You can't create jobs. When you get to 4 or 5% economic growth, you create millions of jobs. You fill the Social Security bucket. You fill the Medicare bucket. Now, why is that not occurring? 75% of the jobs in America are created by small business. We have 300,000 new small businesses created in the United States every year, but we're losing 400,000 small businesses every year. We have a net loss of 100,000 in small business. Now, why is that happening? Well, one of the reasons is because Dutch and Obama supported something called the Dodd-Frank Act. And the Dodd-Frank Act has killed community banks, 15,000 of them, all across America. And that's where small business goes to get their money for startups, minorities, women, seniors, retired, want to start a business. They go to a community bank. And those banks don't exist, and we're losing them. So if you think that Washington is bad, it's probably a lot worse than you really know.
Thank you, Delegate McDonough. 30 seconds to Congressman Ruppersberger for rebuttal.
We are the greatest country in the world. We can do more, there's no question. And I do have to respond to this. Facts, Pat, you gotta get your facts straight. You know, my voting record for the president is 75%. I'm considered the most independent Democrat in the state of Maryland. Pat, your record with your party is 90%. I have to do this 30 seconds. So let's get our facts straight about some of the things that are happening in this country. We are the greatest country. We are working forward. Right now, we are coming out of a recession. We have positive things happening in the 95 corridor. Your community's involved. What's going on in NSA and cyber. We have in other parts of the state, we have Under Armour developing the biggest project probably in the history of the country. So let's start talking about where we're going to go and how good we are. And we are a good country. And Pat, please get your facts straight. If you've noticed, Pat has been saying negative all the way through. That's not my style. I will only go negative on him when I have to protect myself. Right now, you want to know what our qualifications are, what we're going to do today, and what our future is going to be tomorrow.
Thank you. This question is for Delegate McDonough, and I will give you 90 seconds. No response to the rebuttal, sorry. But I will give you 90 seconds for this to compensate for time gone over. This question will be, the war on terror is a clear national priority, but veterans often appear to disappear upon return. What will you do to protect our veterans when they leave the battlefield?
Well, first of all, I want to say Dutch has his Washington facts. I have my facts. And if you want to go to patmcdonoughforcongress.com, you'll see that everything I've told you tonight is absolutely accurate. And I think telling the American people the truth is not negative. I think that's what they expect from their representatives. That's what I think you demand and deserve from your elected officials, the truth. And you're going to get it here tonight. Our veterans, and I'm a veteran, and I will say this to you, they have been abused in this country. Dutch has been there for 14 years. He was on the Armed Services Committee. Now, he's done some good things for veterans. But where has he been? He has stood silent while this abuse has occurred. It's occurred under Bush when he was there. It's occurred under Obama while he was there. He said he votes 75% of the time with Obama. I got to tell you, with me, that's a rubber stamp, because he votes for things like Obamacare, which is destroying this country's health system. He votes for things like he's in favor of sanctuary cities. He voted against Kate's Law, where criminals are killing American citizens. And Kate's Law was proposed to stop that. The military has been stripped to the bone in this country. We have 150% less members of the American military. You talk about the veterans. We are putting our military in danger in places like ISIS. He was on the Intelligence Committee. Where were you, Dutch, when there was ISIS? Where were you when you voted for the Iranian deal, which is going to create terrorism in the world?
You have 60 seconds, Congressman.
Where I was, by the way, my leadership position was to oversee the military, CIA, NSA, all the groups. I was just in Afghanistan a month and a half ago, on the border, Pakistan, Afghanistan, when certain individuals were saying our military was weak and going to fire our generals. You know, those individuals who are out there protecting us were not happy with that language at all. I think you're supporting 100% the person who made those comments. And that's all I want to say about that. Now, as far as veterans, I put together a program called Operation Hero Miles, which when our veterans came home, they couldn't find, they were dropped off at BWI Airport and they had to pay their own way home. I was able to get 6 million frequent flyer miles so our troops could come home and they wouldn't have to pay their own way home. Now, we have problems in a lot of bureaucracies, there's no question about it. And right now, we're focusing as much as we can on attempting to help these veterans. I go to Bethesda Hospital. We're working right now, my role in the Appropriations Committee, to get money, not only for people who lose limbs and issues like that, but also because of post-traumatic stress. I'm there, and I've been doing this for 14 years, and I'm not giving up, especially when it comes to our military.
Thank you, Congressman Ruppersberger. 30-second rebuttal to Delegate McDonough.
Well, Dutch, you did a wonderful thing when you came up with that program, but I'll repeat because it's worth repeating. You've been in Congress for 14 years. I don't have to tell these people the problems that veterans are having with the Veterans Administration. You've been there. You've been on the Armed Services Committee. You also voted in Obamacare. You voted for a tax on medical equipment, including wheelchairs for veterans. Now, I don't think that's a very noble thing to do. And as far as our military is concerned, we have former members of the Obama administration, Gates, and the other members who were secretaries of defense, who have said publicly that Obama has stripped the military. Under Ronald Reagan, we had 600 ships. Under Obama, we have 400 ships. We're moving in the wrong direction.
Thank you, Delegate McDonough. This next question will begin with Congressman Ruppersberger. You have 60 seconds.
Now, this is the last question.
This is the last question of the Q&A period.
Okay.
This has been a particularly noteworthy election season. Briefly stated, do you support your party's presidential candidate?
Okay, yes, I do support the candidate. There are a lot of issues that we have to deal with in this country. But when you compare the two people running, I feel very strongly that Hillary Clinton will be a better president than the other individual who is running. Now, I'm worried about that other individual's temperament. I'm worried about what he says about the military, and you know all the other things that are out there, so I don't want to get into that. I worked with Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. And I work with her, and she has good people around her. She makes hard decisions, and she takes on Putin. I'm very worried about the relationship between the other person running for president and Russia. That's very dangerous, and I want to see his tax returns to see why he won't put them out there, because Russia, in my opinion, and Putin is one of the most dangerous people we have in the world. That's a relevant issue, and we have to make sure we look at that. I also look at the history of Hillary, where she started out helping people and what she's done. She's not a good candidate, she's going to be a good president because she's tough. She has good people around her, and that's the most important thing in management.
Absolutely. Delegate McDonough?
Well, look, Donald Trump says a lot of goofy stuff. Believe me. And we all know it, okay? I'm for his agenda. But Hillary Clinton, she thinks a lot of people are irredeemable. She thinks we're deplorable. She thinks that Catholics and evangelicals are creating problems in this country. She's a person who had 156 people come to her privately while she was Secretary of State, and then they went out and donated $33 million to her foundation and $20 million to her husband for speeches. Hillary Clinton initiated the war in Libya, which resulted in Benghazi, where 4 Americans were murdered, and then she lied to the faces of the families on that in Delaware when they were coming back in flag-covered coffins. I do not trust Hillary Clinton. She is corrupt, and I do not want her as president. If we had somebody else besides Donald Trump, I say good. But let me tell you, Hillary Clinton will appoint a Supreme Court that will destroy what this country is all about for the next half century. Dutch, you can have Hillary.
Thank you, Delegate McDonough. Congressman Ruppersberger, you will...
We're closing now. Okay.
Correct.
First, I've got to respond to that.
30 seconds.
You got to get your facts. You got to get your facts straight. I was vice chair of the committee, Intelligence controlled by Republicans. We did over 2,000-hour investigation on Benghazi. Both the Republican committee in the House and also Armed Services said Hillary did not do anything wrong. They did not feel she was culpable at all for that, and including some of the families. Now that's a fact. That's all I can say as far as that's concerned. You know, as far as what this election is about, I want you to look at my record. Creating jobs. I want you to look at my record in being a member of the Appropriations Committee, which helps our state. I want you to look at what I have done. And if you compare my record to my opponent's record, you know, I'm an end game person. I'm the type that looks at the end game. I'm independent, and I want to do the things that are right for my constituents and my country. If you look at my opponent's record, he's been in Annapolis. He hasn't had a bill. He didn't vote for a budget, operating budget for 10 years, and in the last 5 years, 1 capital budget. Which means he's voting in schools and streets and schools and all those type of things.
60 seconds, Delegate McDonough, for closing
Thank you,
comments.
Dutch, for those wonderful things you just said about me. I didn't vote for an O'Malley budget for 10 years. 10 years in a row. When I started out, I got 3 people to vote against O'Malley's taxes and spending, which have destroyed this state. Remember the rain tax, my friends? I helped to get rid of that. I co-sponsored the bill. Now, when I concluded, there were 43 members of the legislature that voted against those budgets. They were bad budgets. Dutch is right. But let me say this, didn't have an opportunity at the beginning. I say the same thing to every single audience I address. This is the best looking and most intelligent group of people I have ever seen. I got to tell you. No, this election, Dutch and I have known one another for forever. We are friends. We do get along. I just disagree with Dutch on the issues. He has his agenda and what he believes in. He's not a bad guy. I have what I believe in, okay? He does have a good group that works for him. We work together. We worked together on Isabel. When there was a big problem there, he showed up and we worked. But I got to tell you, this election is about change. We are at the crossroads. This is the last generation of Americans that are going to be in a position to determine which way we go. I believe not only that America is the greatest country in the world, I believe that America can be even greater if we go down the journey towards achievement and exceptionalism, which this country is all about.
Thank you,
we are going
Delegate
to do
Mcdonough.
great things.